This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace.
Last year, I went through many different life changes. I needed to take a pause and examine how I was feeling in the inside to better show up for the ones who need me to be my best version of myself.
When you're navigating life's changes, Talkspace can help. Talkspace is the #1 rated online therapy, bringing you professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatry providers that you can access anytime, anywhere.
Living a busy life, navigating a long-distance relationship, becoming a first-step father, Talkspace made all of those journeys possible. I could speak with my therapist in the office. I could speak with my therapist in the comfort of my home. I was never alone.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance, no problem. Now get $80 off your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Card. Naomi Osaka upset #1 Arina Sabalenka at Wimbledon in the 4th round. NASCAR's race at Chicago went to Chase Briscoe. Christopher Bell finished in 2nd.
Live from the heart of SEC country, this is your daily fix of grit, guts, and gridiron glory. Welcome to the Deep South College Football Show.
Bowen, here it goes! Georgia retakes the lead!
Breaking down the biggest matchups, the boldest takes, and the deepest rivalries in college football on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC.
Intercepted! They confused him! Xavier Brown headed the other way! Touchdown Tide!
From Fayetteville to Gainesville, from the Grove to Toomer's Corner, it's SEC football.
Chambers delivers! Touchdown!
Now, here's your award-winning host, Wyatt Fulton.
It is a beautiful Monday afternoon here in the great city of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Welcome into the Deep South College Football Show on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports. We're continuing our SEC previews today here on the Deep South College Football Show. And as you can see from the thumbnail of the video, today we are talking Oklahoma football, the Oklahoma Sooners. We're rocking with the Oklahoma hoodie today here. Got this on my trip to Norman, Oklahoma. Love buying hoodies from teams that I get to go cover an environment at. So we're rocking with the Oklahoma hoodie today as we preview the Sooners, who are led by head coach Brent Venables, who's been with the program there in Norman, Oklahoma since 2022. Remember, he was the longtime defensive coordinator with the Clemson Tigers starting in 2012, stayed through the Dabo Swinney transition there, won a couple of national championships at Clemson, and then became the head coach of Oklahoma in 2022, leaving Clemson for his first-time head coaching gig. And it's a gig that he's familiar with, right? He was the co-DC at Oklahoma from 1999 to 2003. He was the defensive coordinator at Oklahoma from 2004 to 2011. 2022, he takes the job with the Oklahoma Sooners. And he's got a pretty good coaching staff already, right? You look at the offensive coordinator here. It is Ben Arbuckle here. When you look at Oklahoma's offensive coordinator here, he used to be the offensive coordinator at Washington State. Washington State kind of gets the shaft in the Pac-12 when Oregon, USC, Washington, UCLA, and about every other program in that conference left. So Ben Arbuckle leaves Washington State, comes to Oklahoma to be the offensive coordinator, and he brings with him number 10 in red that you see on your screen there in this preview here. John Mateer, starting quarterback for the Oklahoma Sooners, was a very, very good ball player last season prior to a thumb injury. Prior to a thumb injury he suffered against the Auburn Tigers in their first SEC game of the season, right? Suffered that thumb injury in the first quarter against Auburn, still went out and won the football game, defeated Auburn, was the Heisman betting favorite coming out of that game, right? On Sunday morning, John Mateer is the betting favorite. By Sunday night, we now know John Mateer has a broken thumb. John Mateer will not play in their next game against Kent State. And his longevity is also put into question because Oklahoma had Kent State a bye week, and then they had the Red River Shootout with Texas, known by no other name on this program, 2 weeks later. So it was a big deal that John Mateer suffered this injury. He's back for Red River, and they fall in that game. They lose bad in that ball game to the Texas Longhorns through 3 interceptions John Mateer did. So now Oklahoma's playing with their back against the wall, right? They've played their big marquee opponent of the season in Texas out in Dallas in the Cotton Bowl, and they lose 23-6. Now you're playing with your back against the wall the rest of the season, right? Because we know in the SEC, you can only suffer 2 losses if you want to have a chance to make the college football playoff. Alabama was 3-loss 2 seasons ago, missed out on the CFP. Hell, if you're not a program with a high enough pedigree, you may not even get a chance with 2 losses. You look at Vanderbilt last season. They were a 10-2 team, lost to Alabama and I believe Texas, and they did not even sniff the college football playoff. So we knew Oklahoma had to be a 2-loss team to make the CFP. They beat South Carolina 26-7. Then they lose to Ole Miss at home with road trips to Knoxville, Tennessee against Tennessee and Tuscaloosa against Alabama on Alabama's homecoming. John Mateer does what John Mateer does best, and he wins both those football games. Also on the back of that vaunted Oklahoma defense that we'll talk about in the second segment here. Right now we're talking offense for the Oklahoma Sooners here as we do our Oklahoma season preview for the 2026 college football season. So they walk into Knoxville, beat Tennessee. They walk into Tuscaloosa, beat Alabama. They handle their business against Missouri and LSU to end the season. And Oklahoma finishes the regular season 10-2. They make the college football playoff, and they lose to Alabama. Now, they had a 17-0 lead on Alabama in that ballgame, so we know how dangerous Oklahoma can be. John Mateer, even with the thumb injury that hindered him from the Texas game on, even with the knee injury that hindered him in the second half of the season against Tennessee and Alabama and some of those late season games there, he still was a very, very good quarterback for Oklahoma. He finished the regular season, he finished the season last year with 2,800 passing yards, 14 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Not the best numbers that you want to see, yes, but Oklahoma had a bit of an issue with the offensive line a season ago. So they've revamped the offensive line this upcoming season. They couldn't run the ball to save their lives. Torrey Blaylock led the team last year with 480 rushing yards, kind of similar to what Alabama was doing last season. For those in Tuscaloosa that understand the struggles Alabama was having last season, Oklahoma saved by quarterback play, couldn't run the ball, and offensive line was a big question mark last season. So both Oklahoma and Alabama had to revamp their offense. They've got to get better in the run game, both these two teams. So what does Oklahoma do? They fire running backs coach DeMarco Murray. They bring in the running backs coach that got Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love to Notre Dame. So Oklahoma and Alabama both were at rock bottom last season when you look at being able to run the football. They both have made changes in certain rooms that equate to the run game. Oklahoma with the running backs coach, Alabama with the offensive line coach in the offensive line room. So what does this room look like for Oklahoma now? Well, it still starts with Xavier Robinson and Torrey Blaylock, who both were on this roster last season. Blaylock had 480 yards and 4 touchdowns. Xavier Robinson had 421 yards and 4 touchdowns. John Mateer is back as the starting quarterback with 431 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns last season for the Sooners. So what does the run game look like for Oklahoma this season? I think Oklahoma got better this season. I think Oklahoma's roster looks better now than it did this time last year, even with the hype around John Mateer, even with all the excitement around Ben Arbuckle's new offensive scheme, around John Mateer coming in, around Jaden Ott entering the transfer portal and transferring to Oklahoma, who unfortunately that situation did not work out in favor of the Sooners, in favor of Jaden Ott's tenure with the Sooners there. So, but John Mateer, this is a very dynamic quarterback. I almost call him Johnny Manziel light because he does such a good job with that almost backyard style of football that Johnny Manziel was so good at, right? Johnny Manziel was so prolific in that backyard style of football that it was miserable to play against in college, but in the pros, it was a lot more difficult to have success. I kind of view John Mateer in that same light here, right? Very backyard style of football, hell to play against at the collegiate level. Is that going to translate to the NFL? I have no idea. That's a problem that we'll deal with in February and March and April 2027 with the NFL draft. But right now, John Mateer plays a style of ball that is beautifully crafted for the collegiate game. He's also worked on his throwing motion. We looked at some videos and some reports out of Norman, Oklahoma. George Stoya of On 3 is a guy that we've referenced a lot here on this program here. Our guy Unfair Sports, Jay with Locked On Sooners, also does a really incredible job with Oklahoma coverage. He's worked on his throwing motion too. So now it's not as much of that sidearm throwing that I think a lot of dual threat quarterbacks struggle to deal with. It's a little more over the top now. And what does that mean? That means it gives you more control. You're a little more accurate if you're coming over the top versus if you're coming off to the side, right? Because if you're coming off to the side and that ball stays on your hand a little bit long, now you're hooking that ball a little too far. You're not leading the receiver into a throw. You may be throwing behind the guy, or you may be throwing way too out in front of the guy, depending on what kind of style of ball you're throwing. If you're coming more over the top now, though, at that point, you still can deal with accuracy issues, right? But it allows you to be a little more accurate. So he's changed his throwing mechanic. And George Stoya had another really good report today of John Mateer in Oklahoma. He's been watching film with Sam Bradford, the Oklahoma legend here, when you look at his days with the Sooners. And look, I understand Sam Bradford may have not been, the best NFL quarterback by any stretch of the imagination. But, I mean, he was a Heisman Trophy winner in 2008, was the first overall pick of the 2010 NFL draft. In that 2008 season, he threw for 4,720 yards, 50 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, was a unanimous All-American that season. Here we go. I got the list pulled up now. All these awards were won in 2008 by Sam Bradford as a member of Oklahoma. AP Player of the Year, Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, Consensus All-American, Davey O'Brien Award, Heisman Memorial Trophy, and the Sammy Baugh Award. When you look at what Sam Bradford was able to do that season in 2008 at Oklahoma. So looking at it here, if John Mateer is working with Sam Bradford, who's an Oklahoma legend, a Heisman Trophy winner, and a phenomenal quarterback in college football, maybe it seems like John Mateer is taking this seriously. Maybe John Mateer is trying to get better. And if that's the case, if I can get if you can get what you got out of John Mateer for the first 4 games last season throughout the course of a full regular season, may not be pretty. Maybe if you're a fan in the state of Oklahoma, you might be having chest palpitations. You might need to get some heart medication. But Oklahoma's going to win football games, especially when you look at a guy like John Mateer. And it's not just Mateer, right? It's this wide receiver room as well. Isaiah Satania is back in this wide receiver room. He is the only SEC wide receiver, he is the leading returning receiver in the SEC in terms of yardage, right? And I know it's a little confusing. A guy like Chris Brazzell, for example, he had more yards than Isaiah Satania did last season. Chris Brazzell's in the NFL. Isaiah Satania was the 3rd leading receiver in total receiving yards last season in the SEC. 1 and 2 are gone. Isaiah Satania is the leading returning receiver in terms of yardage in the SEC when he had 965 last season and 8 touchdowns. And he's a burner too. Oh my word, is this guy a burner? Coming from Fayetteville, Arkansas, he's a problem to deal with there on the offensive side of the football. You always have to know where Isaiah Satania is at all times. So you return Isaiah Satania via the transfer portal. You added Trell Harris from Virginia, a redshirt senior. So he's a guy that's got a lot of experience. He had 847 yards and 5 touchdowns last season with Virginia on 59 receptions. You also head to the other side of that Red River rivalry, and you go get Parker Livingston from Texas. He's a redshirt sophomore from Texas there. Went to school in Lucas, Texas, went to the University of Texas. So this is a guy that when you get to that Red River game, you best believe Texas and Oklahoma are both going to be game planning in and around Parker Livingston. Texas is going to try and slow him down. Oklahoma's going to try and get him the football because he's got that extra gear that he's going to be able to use when you look at Oklahoma's offense in that game. And by the way, 29 receptions for 516 yards and 6 touchdowns last season there for Livingston. So you bolster up that wide receiver room big time there for the Sooners. And then at tight end, right? Jaron Kanek, great ball player in Oklahoma. I have not talked to an Oklahoma fan, reporter, in the 2 trips that we've made to Norman, Oklahoma to cover Alabama and Oklahoma. There's not one person that I've talked to that did not love Jaron Kanek. Great guy. He's gone to the NFL. So what do you have to replace him? Well, you bring in Hayden Hansen from Weatherford, Texas. So he understands that Oklahoma-Texas rivalry, but by way of Florida. He went to Florida, has now transferred to Oklahoma. 254 yards, 2 touchdowns on 30 receptions. Another big body guy that Oklahoma can use as kind of a safety net in and around John Mateer. You also brought in a guy who might have the best name in college football, Rocky Beers, a redshirt senior from Colorado State. 31 receptions, 388 yards, 7 touchdowns last season as a member of Colorado State. And then for good measure, you bring in Jack Van Dorsleer from Tennessee, who was a very, very highly sought-after transfer prospect, but didn't maybe get a ton of reps at Tennessee last season. Only 5 receptions for 23 yards and a touchdown, but even still, you revamp that room. You bring in guys that can contribute now in Hansen and Beers, and you go get a guy that can contribute meaningfully in the future in Van Dorsleer. So looking at Oklahoma's offense here, I think Oklahoma's offense is going to be better in 2026 than they were in 2025. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to see better results. That doesn't necessarily mean, okay, they went 10-2 last season. If they're better on offense, then they should go 11-1. That may not entirely be the case because Oklahoma's schedule got tougher in 2026. And we'll take a look at this schedule here in the third segment here. But we've talked offense for Oklahoma. Now we get to talk about the Brent Venables side of the football, defense. We'll talk about defense on the other side of the
bracelets, earrings, and precious gemstones for all occasions.
In the Tuscaloosa Galleria between Edgar's and Joey's and FincherandOsment.com.
What does it mean to advertise and do your marketing with Town Square Media Tuscaloosa? Melissa started her business in 2014. What would you say to someone considering Town Square Media Tuscaloosa?
My experience with Town Square Media has been awesome, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone. I think that this is the first time in my marketing experience that I've been able to see my return on investment. I would definitely say in the past that has not been the case. In this, I like knowing that that's 100%. A lot of the marketing we've done has been radio. You guys have so much more to offer than that, whether it's, websites from targeted marketing to radio. You are kind of a one-stop shop, and it makes doing marketing so much easier. So I would definitely recommend it.
For more,
800-498-6548. That's 800-498-6548. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Here's your Tuscaloosa and West Alabama forecast. This afternoon, keep an eye out for a passing storm. Expect sunshine, warm conditions, 91. Soft southwest breeze at 5. And a chance for a shower or storm lingering into the evening before fading. Tonight, partly cloudy, muggy, cooling to 74. More hot weather on tap for Tuesday and Wednesday, reaching the mid-90s. An afternoon shower or storm chance possible both days. Richard Weathing of the Weather Channel for Town Square Media Tuscaloosa.
It's 92 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
The flagship station for Alabama Crimson Tide football.
Alabama touchdown.
Only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
And welcome back into the Deep South College Football Show. We're taking a look at the Oklahoma Sooners here as you look at the 2026 college football season for Oklahoma. If you're listening on the radio side of things, we greatly appreciate that. We had to take a little bit of a time out there. If you're watching us out on the YouTube channel, hey, we really, really appreciate that here as well, because it's a lot of fun to get to talk college football. It's a lot of fun to get to talk everything else, not just the University of Alabama, but we've done previews for every SEC team in alphabetical order leading up to Oklahoma. And we're going to continue this as we are, 2 weeks away from SEC Media Days in Tampa, Florida. So it should be a lot of fun in Tampa a little bit later this month here. But right now we're talking about Oklahoma yet again here, and we're talking defensively. Defensive coordinator is Todd Bates, who also serves as the associate head coach for the Oklahoma Sooners. I'm on the Oklahoma website right now here. That would be Soonersports.com as we're looking at this here. Todd Bates, co-defensive coordinator, run defense, defensive tackles, associate head coach here. You've got Miguel Chavez, I believe I pronounced that correctly. If not, I apologize, who coaches defensive ends. Nate Drilling coaches inside linebackers, assistant linebackers / outside linebackers coach. You've got Wes Goodwin. Brandon Hall coaches the safeties there. Lamar Morgan coaches the defensive backs, and Xavier Brewer is an assistant defensive backs coach here. Todd Bates has been Oklahoma's associate head coach and co-defensive coordinator and run defense since January 2022. He also coaches the defensive tackles in Norman, Oklahoma. I say co-defensive coordinator because the guy in this picture here who's got a headset and is probably screaming at an official in this picture is Brent Venables. We talked about him in the first segment. Defensive coordinator, longtime defensive coordinator with Clemson. So he's the guy that's got his blueprint, his fingerprints all over this Oklahoma defense. And this defense is nasty. This defense is disgusting here. Not one transfer is projected to start on Oklahoma's defense this season. Not one. Or not one transfer from this past season. There may have been a guy or two in here that did transfer in 2024 and came in 2025, but now they're still on the roster for 2026. Not one new transfer is projected to start in Oklahoma, which is a testament to it's a very big testament to the culture that they've got in Norman, Oklahoma, especially after a playoff run there. We'll start on the defensive line, and yeesh. Taylor Wine. If you're in Tuscaloosa, you remember Taylor Wine, right? He's the one that had the strip sack on Ty Simpson. He's a very, very, very physical ball player. There had 7 sacks last season, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception as well. Also had 6 quarterback hits in 2025 here. Taylor Wine is back on that defensive line. You've also got Jaden Jackson, an Indianapolis native who had 3 sacks and 12 solo tackles, 28 total last season, 5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 2 quarterback hits. He's back. You have David Stone from Del City, Oklahoma. 8 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, 6 quarterback hurries last season. This is all the defensive line, by the way. This isn't linebackers that are getting 8 tackles for loss, 9 tackles for loss, 4.5 tackles for loss. This is the defensive line. That's what you have to deal with Oklahoma. It's not just great linebacking play, which you're going to get in Norman, Oklahoma with this defensive coaching staff. It's the defensive line as well. And then at a right defensive end here as well, at least according to this website I've got here, I'm going to butcher this name, and I do apologize. Adibawore. That's what we're going to roll with here. Number 34, we'll give his number so that way people can actually go look him up here. 5.5 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, 1 quarterback hurry last season for Oklahoma. Again, it's not just those guys, though. These reserve units are nasty for Oklahoma this season. You brought in Bishop Thomas from Georgia State, who had 48 total tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, 5 quarterback hurries. You brought in Kenny Ozawalu from UTSA, 9 solo tackles, 17 total, 6 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 3 quarterback hurries. Again, this is just the defensive line. This isn't a linebacking core that you're dealing with. By the way, you also have Danny Okoye, who had 2 tackles for loss and 2 sacks last season. That man had 6 total tackles. 6 total. 4 of them came in the backfield with 2 tackles for loss and 2 sacks. That's how good this Oklahoma defense is. That's how good this Oklahoma defense can be. A very, very defensive-minded head coach in Brent Venables. You can almost always pencil in. We said it with the Kentucky preview with Mark Stoops, who used to be the head coach at that program until he was let go last season, right? You may not have known what Kentucky was going to do on offense, but you could at least pencil in that they're going to have a top 30 defense. You could always pencil in that, hey, they may not be able to score. You're also not going to be able to score on them. Oklahoma's defense is the same way. I can immediately look at Oklahoma's defense and pencil in and say, yep, that guy's going to be good. Yep, that guy's going to have 5 tackles for loss. Yep, you're not going to be able to run the football on that crew. Yep, that guy's going to be an All-American, or that guy's going to be an All-SEC player here. That's what they do defensively, led by Brent Venables. Again, longtime defensive coordinator at Clemson. Dabo Swinney has not had the same level of success at Clemson since Brent Venables left that program there. So that's the defensive line room. And now you look at this linebacker room here. Owen Heineke, transferred from Ohio State by 5 years ago at this point. He got his waiver from the NCAA. He was granted a waiver. I think he got an injunction from a local court in Norman, Oklahoma. So he gets an injunction. He's back for another season in Norman, by the way. Had in 2025, 74 total tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 3 quarterback hurries, 1 forced fumble, 4 pass breakups for Owen Heineke. He is the juice guy of that defense. He brings the energy. He brings the juice. They love Owen Heineke in Norman, Oklahoma. And he's back for another season here. Another guy that they really, really love in Norman, Oklahoma is Kip Lewis. Kip Lewis plays outside linebacker, yes, but they move him all over that place. A redshirt senior, number 10. If that name sounds familiar, it probably should, because he had a pick 6 on Jalen Milroe in the 2024 Alabama-Oklahoma game, where Oklahoma won 24-3. He had a pick 6. That last interception of the day was Kip Lewis. Our guy Unfair Sports called it a Kip 6. And so, but last season for Oklahoma, 76 total tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss, 5 quarterback hurries, 4 sacks, 4 pass breakups, and a forced fumble. Again, the linebacking core at Oklahoma, they've got veterans that are nasty to play against on the defensive line. If you get past the defensive line, they have veterans that are nasty to play against in that linebacker room, and they're not afraid to do stunts and twists and blitzes and overload the box with Owen Heineke, Kip Lewis, and the other guys in that linebacking room there, where you've also got, they call it the cheetah, and I'm fairly certain that's the wolf if you're thinking about Alabama's defense. So that pure just like edge rusher off the side, outside linebacker spot, Alabama, they typically call it a wolf. I think Coach Saban called it a jack. For Oklahoma, it's the cheetah. And that is Reggie Powell. Or no, excuse me. Erase all that from your mind, I think. Yeah, erase all that from your mind. For Oklahoma, the cheetah is the star in Nick Saban's defense. So I do apologize. That's on me. I got that wrong. The cheetah is the star in Coach Saban's defense. Typically, that slot defensive back. In the current defense at Alabama under Kane Womack, it's the Husky. So think Red Morgan, think Malachi Moore, think Brian Branch when we say the cheetah in Oklahoma's defense here, right? That's Reggie Powers III here. He's a safety from Centerville, Ohio. Last season, 31 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 1 quarterback hurry, 1 forced fumble, 1 pass breakup. Didn't start a ton of games for Oklahoma last season, but it's a damn good ball player. That's a good ball player there. The secondary is also just littered with talent here. Cortland Guillory was a true freshman last season who had 41 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 quarterback hurry, broke up 7 passes for Oklahoma. And then 2 guys in the secondary that they're brothers, number 1. Number 2, you should know them if you paid attention when Alabama played Oklahoma. For those of us that listen in Tuscaloosa, you should know the Bowen brothers, Eli and Peyton. Those guys, one plays strong safety, one plays cornerback. Peyton Bowen is the safety there. 47 tackles last season for Oklahoma. 2 interceptions and 7 pass breakups, by the way. Eli Bowen, the junior, 24 total tackles, 4 pass breakups. Again, not one transfer player. Oklahoma did not bring in a single player in the 2025 transfer portal after the 2025 season. They didn't bring in a single transfer that's going to start for them on defense, at least according to the projected lineup that I'm checking out here, right? Testament to what they built in Norman, Oklahoma. It's a true, tried and true testament to what they've built there in Norman. And it's a tried and true testament to the faith that all these guys have in Brent Venables and that defensive coaching staff there. They've also brought back Tate Sendell. If you remember Tate Sendell, he was the Lou Groza Award winner. He kind of went viral against Tennessee because Kirk Herbstreit flamed him for wearing what Herbstreit called Daisy Dukes. You'll know that reference. Herbstreit, he was wearing Daisy Dukes out there against Tennessee, but hey, brother can kick a football like nobody's business. He had 2 misses in the loss to Alabama in the college football playoff, but don't let your last impression of a player skew what that player is, right? Because if that's the case, you're not very high on Ty Simpson, right? If that's the case, there's a lot of guys that you're not very high on. Carson Beck, right? Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor didn't really do a ton in the national championship game. So are you not high on Bain and Mesidor just because your last impression of them is they lost to Indiana in the national championship? Are you not high on Trinidad Chambliss because the last time we saw him, he threw an incompletion and lost the Fiesta Bowl in the semifinal of the college football playoff? So don't let your last impression of a player be your only impression of a player. Tate Sendell's a good football player. He can boom field goals from 50-plus yards. He makes Oklahoma's life really, really easy because they know, all right, if I get to the other 40-yard line, Tate's got it. Tate Sendell's going to make that kick. That's how good of a ball player that Tate Sendell can be for Oklahoma as the place kicker, as a redshirt senior there. He made 88.9% of his field goals last season. He was perfect on extra points as well last season there. So you want to make sure that you know your kicking unit is ready to go when Tate Sendell walks out there. Your field goal defense needs to be on its game, and you probably need to get a hand on that football. Otherwise, good chance Tate Sendell's going to make it. And by the way, at kick and punt return, Isaiah Satanya's back there. Again, that's a guy with track speed, right? That's a guy that's running probably a I'd say a 4.28 40, maybe 4.29, maybe low 4.3s that you got to go cover on that kickoff unit. And again, I know I'm using the Alabama game as a big example, but that's the game that a lot of Alabama fans relate to. They understand. They remember that game, right? He burned the punt unit in Tuscaloosa during that game in the regular season in November. So a lot of stuff that we need to pay attention to when we look at the Oklahoma Sooners. They've done a really, really good job of building a very, very highly competitive team here in Norman, Oklahoma. On the other side here, we've talked offense, we talked defense, even talked a little special teams. Let's take a look at the schedule because I think Oklahoma got better in 2026 than they were in 2025. I don't know that that necessarily equates to having a better season in 2026 compared to 2025. And Brent Venables in Oklahoma, they've done this kind of really big roller coaster ride, right? They're 10-2 one year, they're 6-6 the next. They're 10-2 the next year. They're not great the third or the fourth year. So actually, he's entering year 4 in the program. So, but they go 10-2, then they go 6-6, then they go 10-2 again. So what does 2026 look like? I don't think it's going to follow that trend. I don't think they're going to be 6-6. But what is Oklahoma going to look?
Bracelets, earrings, and precious gemstones for all occasions.
In the Tuscaloosa Galleria between Edgar's and Joey's and FincherandOsment.com.
What does it mean to advertise and do your marketing with Town Square Media Tuscaloosa? Melissa started her business in 2014. What would you say to someone considering Town Square Media Tuscaloosa?
My experience with Town Square Media has been awesome, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone. I think that this is the first time in my marketing experience that I've been able to see my return on investment. I would definitely say in the past that has not been the case. In this, I like knowing that that's 100%. A lot of the marketing we've done has been radio. You guys have so much more to offer than that, whether it's, websites from targeted marketing to radio. You are kind of a one-stop shop, and it makes doing marketing so much easier. So I would definitely recommend it.
For more
Order for Jennifer C.
Is this my double shot, double cream, double froth, double pump, double whip, double sleeve?
Yeah. Can you handle that much caffeine?
Did you know Discover automatically doubles all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year?
Oh, really? That's great.
Seriously, did you know Discover automatically doubles all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year?
Yeah, you just said that.
Did you say I just said that?
Yeah, I'm cutting you off.
I can't have any more? Why not?
You earn, we match. Discover Cashback Match. See terms at discover.com/creditcard.
Or call 800-498-6548. That's 800-498-6548. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Tide 100.9. For more coverage of Alabama football, visit us at Tide100.9.com or download the free Tide 100.9 app.
The Crimson Tide will not be denied.
Welcome back into the Deep South College Football Show. We're taking a look at the Oklahoma Sooners football schedule now here as we're doing our Oklahoma season preview here for the 2026 college football season. You look at Oklahoma's schedule here, and it starts with UTEP. So again, kind of that nice, easy, let's ease into the college football season here, right? Because we got some big games on this schedule here when you look at Oklahoma. Night game against UTEP in week 1. That's listed as 7 p.m. here according to ESPN, which is where I got the schedule from. So hopefully ESPN's right on their schedule time or on their kickoff time here. That game will be on SEC Network Plus. So if you don't have ESPN Plus or SEC Network Plus, then you're going to have to wait another week to get the full view of what Oklahoma and John Mateer looks like because, and it's going to be a good one, because they go to Ann Arbor. They go to the Big House to take on Kyle Whittingham, Bryce Underwood, and the Michigan Wolverines on big noon kickoff on Fox. Week 2 at Michigan there for Oklahoma. Week 3, they return to Norman, and this is the first time we'll get to see the Palace on the Prairie, one of my favorite stadiums in the SEC. It's one of my favorite stadiums. It's one of my favorite environments. They did a really good job of embracing SEC culture. They did a really good job of the pageantry of the sport. Now, I've been there twice, right? And Alabama was there both times, so my vision might be a little bit skewed. One was a game where it didn't seem like they really had a chance. I don't think anybody picked Oklahoma in 2024, but they come out and that crowd gets rowdy, and by the end of the first half, they've got a lead, and suddenly that crowd becomes a problem, and they win 24-3. And I'm watching Oklahoma fans dance on the middle of the field. 2025, we go to Norman, Oklahoma again for the Alabama-Oklahoma playoff game, and that was electric. That might be one of the best environments I've been in, is that playoff game in Norman, Oklahoma. I got Alabama in an upset, and I got to see Alabama and Oklahoma in a college football playoff game. I don't know what a regular New Mexico type of environment looks like in Norman. There's a lot of people that could probably give a better viewpoint on that. I like Norman, Oklahoma. I like that environment. I love that stadium. 6:30 against New Mexico on September the 19th. And then you open SEC play on September 26th. Week 4. Oh, so actually, if my mind serves correctly, LSU plays Ole Miss in week 3. Oklahoma plays Georgia in week 4. So, okay, I was thinking that was the week 3 game. So, hey, even better. That's probably a night game. Oklahoma at Georgia for the second ever matchup between Georgia and Oklahoma. The first one came in the Rose Bowl. Baker Mayfield, Jake Fromm. You also had that slew of running backs, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, DeAndre Swift that was at Georgia in that game. All-time classic in the Rose Bowl. That was the first ever matchup between Oklahoma and Georgia. The second ever matchup between these two programs is coming in Athens. So that's going to be a lot of fun when we get to look at that matchup here between Georgia and Oklahoma. I anticipate that being a night game now. Now that we know, now that I remember, and I'm looking at the schedule, and it's not the same week as LSU and Ole Miss. I thought it was. That's on me. I apologize. It's going to be a lot of fun to get to watch that matchup between Georgia and Oklahoma. They get a bye week in the first weekend of October because the second weekend of October, Red River Shootout, they get Texas in Dallas at that just beautiful 2:30 kickoff. Going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be one of the most anticipated games of the year because Texas got the better of them last season, despite Texas having what was quote unquote a down season for them. At least in the eyes of Texas fans, in the eyes of Steve Sarkisian, the head coach, that appeared to be a down season for Texas, going 9-3 and missing the playoff. They're all in this year. Cam Coleman, Ryan Wingo, Arch Manning, Hollywood Smothers, Raleek Brown, Colin Simmons on the defensive side of the ball there. This appears to be an all-in year for Texas. For Oklahoma, this is a get-back game. And you look at, and now you see the full slate of the schedule here. This almost feels like a must-win because I don't know that I'm going to give Oklahoma the benefit of the doubt going into Athens. I didn't give Alabama the benefit of the doubt going into Athens, and Alabama had their number and snapped the win streak that Georgia had dating back to 2019 at home, 30-plus wins at home. I didn't give Alabama the benefit of the doubt going into that. Alabama proved me wrong. As much as I like Oklahoma, as much as I like this roster, as much as I like this team, they're going to have to prove me wrong in Athens, Georgia. They're going to have to prove me wrong. And we talk about the offensive side of the ball. Gunnar Stockton with Georgia, Nate Frazier, Chauncey Bowens. For Oklahoma, it's John Mateer, Isaiah Satania, Parker Washington. That game's probably going to be a lot lower scoring than a lot of people think. Jackson's mentioned it before, but I think that game's probably going to be 24-17, 24-14 if somebody wins by double digits. I struggle to see these two teams cross the 30-point mark. Now, if they do, all the more power to them. If they do, we're in for an all-time classic there in Athens, Georgia in week number 4 on September the 26th. But I'm not anticipating that being a high-scoring game. Texas, I anticipate that to be a high-scoring game. These are two high-flying offenses. Yes, they both have defensive stars. We've rattled them off for Oklahoma. Texas, you know Colin Simmons is going to make life a living hell for John Mateer in that offensive line. But I expect this to be a high-scoring game when I look at what Arch Manning is supposed to be this season, what I expect John Mateer to be this season. Then you hit kind of a lull in SEC play, right? You come out fast and furious, out of the gates, gut punch with Georgia. All right, you get knocked in the jaw with Texas, and then you hit that little bit of a lull. You play Kentucky at home. What does Kentucky look like with Will Stein? You go to Mississippi State. I understand Mississippi State is a rough environment to go play in. However, I'm not anticipating Mississippi State winning that game. Again, no disrespect. No disrespect to the Bulldogs. I don't know why I just completely blanked on their mascot there, so I do apologize. South Carolina, That's another one that could get frisky, right? South Carolina, they've got Lenore Sellers. Should have Jacarius Peak at left tackle back by that point in the season. Nick Harbor, Dylan Stewart. That's another one that I could see going one way or another, whether that be a shootout because Lenore Sellers is clicking on all cylinders, or maybe it's a defensive slugfest because Dylan Stewart's just that good. Dylan Stewart's just that much of a game wrecker, and Oklahoma's defense is, again, going to make life a living hell for Lenore Sellers and South Carolina there. You go to Florida. What does Florida look like at that point in the season? What does the Swamp look like at that point in the season? Are they riding high? We did our Florida season preview earlier in the month of June. What does Florida look like? Are they riding high? Are they on a hot streak? Does the Swamp become a problem? Or is Florida kind of trailing a little bit and maybe lost some games that maybe they shouldn't have lost? Or, maybe lost to Ole Miss, maybe lost at Texas, lost to Georgia. That's fresh off the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. So what does Florida look like by that point? Are they a 3-loss team? Are they a 4-loss team? Could they roll into Como, Columbia, Mississippi, or Columbia, Missouri? Could they roll into Auburn and drop one early before they hit their stride late in the year? So we're kind of wait and see mode with the Swamp there in Florida on November the 7th. November 14th, Ole Miss at home. A rematch of last year's game where Ole Miss walked into Norman, Oklahoma and beat you with Trinidad Chambliss and Kewan Lacey. Well, guess what? Those two guys are back this season for Ole Miss. Now you've got John Mateer back, yes, but they've done it before. They did it last year, right? I do believe Ole Miss walked into Norman, Oklahoma and beat you 34-26. What does that look like this season? No Lane Kiffin, no Charlie Weiss. So maybe you don't have those quote-unquote offensive gurus. Is Ole Miss hitting a slump, right? If they go out and lose to LSU early, does their season start to fall apart? So you're kind of keeping an eye on what Ole Miss looks like here this season as well. When you look at what's going on there on November the 14th, November the 21st, Texas A&M. And I don't know where Oklahoma's homecoming game fits into all this. If it were up to me, I'd probably make that the Ole Miss game, right? You want that high energy. You want to get amped up for that game. You can't make it Georgia because that's a road game. You can't make it Texas because that's in Dallas. I don't know that you necessarily want the homecoming environment for South Carolina. No disrespect to the Gamecocks, but people get rowdy. Those homecoming games get a lot more amped up. I don't know that we necessarily want to do that for South Carolina. So maybe you make it Ole Miss at that point in the season on November the 14th. I know it's late for homecoming, but Alabama's was mid-November last season because they hosted Oklahoma. That was their homecoming game. The second to last game of the season because Alabama went Oklahoma, East Carolina, and Auburn. So it would line up. I don't know where it lines up. I haven't looked at it. It might be out there already. I don't know. But if it were up to me, I'd probably make it that Ole Miss game. And then November 21st, you've got Texas A&M, a team that played a lot of bottom feeders in the SEC last season. The one that they didn't, they lost to Texas, and then they lost to Miami in the college football playoff at home. What does Texas A&M look like this season? They've revamped that receiver room with Isaiah Horton, still keeping Mario Craver and Ashton Bethel-Roman. You retain Reuben Owens at running back. You try and improve on the offensive line. I think they consider their offensive line additions to be steps in the right direction. And then defensively, what are you going to do to replace Cassius Howell, the big edge rusher that in the regular season led the SEC in sacks? Colin Simmons, after the game against Michigan, ended up leading the SEC, but in the regular season, it was Cassius Howell that led the Southeastern Conference. So you got to replace that production. What does Texas A&M look like? And Texas A&M, their season hinges on what Marcel Reed looks like. Do we get fourth quarter against Notre Dame last season Marcel Reed, or do we get Texas Marcel Reed? Because those are two, one's ceiling is up here, the other's floor is down here. This is the same guy that in one game put his team in a 30-point deficit and got his team out of a 30-point deficit. So what does Marcel Reed look like? I don't know. We haven't seen him play a football game since Texas A&M went out and lost to Miami in December. So now we're 7 months removed from that. I would assume he's gotten better. How much better, though? And how does his better compare to what Oklahoma's better could potentially look like next season? And then you end the regular season on the road. So that A&M game, that'll be senior day. You'll want to go win that game for your seniors. I like that a lot. People, again, they get amped up for senior day. They get amped up for these big-time environments. So homecoming, people get rowdy for that. Senior Day, people get excited for that. They want to see those seniors go out and play. Missouri, in the final game of the regular season, you go to Columbia, Missouri in an old rivalry game from their days in the Big 12. That's another one that, what's Austin Simmons looking like? Is Ahmad Hardy playing? If he is, what does Ahmad Hardy look like? Is he the same Ahmad Hardy we saw last season at Missouri, or does he maybe take a step back because of that injury he suffered after getting shot at a concert in Mississippi? So it's a big question mark right now when you look at what Ahmad Hardy brings to the table. If you do have last year's Ahmad Hardy, who I think probably should have won the Doak Walker, probably has a chance to do it again this season. Wouldn't be shocked if Missouri's really, really good and Ahmad Hardy's hitting on all cylinders. If he's not getting Heisman talks, I don't know that he'll necessarily be in New York, but if Missouri's great and Ahmad Hardy's running the football like hell, I could see him getting talks of a Heisman trophy. Doesn't mean he's going to win it. Doesn't mean he's even going to go to New York, right? We talked about it with like Jalen Milroe in 2023, and he finished 6th in the Heisman Trophy voting. So no guarantee he actually gets there. But what does he look like? That's the big question here this season for when you look at the Missouri Tigers here. And they got to play Oklahoma at the end of the regular season. Whitman said it in our Missouri preview on Thursday there. He's got Missouri being 7-4 going into the Oklahoma game with a chance to knock Missouri, or excuse me, he's got Missouri going at 7-4 going into the Oklahoma game with a chance to knock Oklahoma out of the college football playoff. It's a tough task. It's a tall task. It also means he's probably got Oklahoma 10 or 11 wins going into this point in the season. If they're 10 wins, they'd be 10-1 going into that point. That means they lose one of Georgia, Texas, and Ole Miss. If they're, I guess that'd be 9-2 going into that point. They've lost 2 of Georgia, Texas, and Ole Miss at that point, and Texas A&M. I don't want to leave Texas A&M out of that as well. So, or Michigan. When we say this is this is a much tougher schedule than it was last season, it 100% is, because not only the teams you're playing, but where you're playing them. Michigan, I don't know that I'd necessarily consider Michigan a tough team if this game were in Norman, but it's in the Big House. Georgia's always going to be a problem, and you got to go to Athens. Texas is always a problem, and you got to play them at a neutral site. You got to play Ole Miss. You got to play Texas A&M. Now, you do get those 2 at home, but this is, in terms of upset alert, I'd put Georgia on upset alert against Oklahoma, but really and truly, because I'm trying to think about where Oklahoma would be favored in, too, because I don't know that we've got a ton of game spreads out there right now. In terms of upset alerts, there's an upset alert right there. I think they'll be favored going into Como, going into Columbia, Missouri on November the 28th. That's an upset alert watch. I mean, so if Oklahoma goes in and handles their business, that still leaves you Georgia, Texas, that you still got to deal with. If they aren't handling their business, that's Michigan, that's Georgia, that's Texas, that's Florida, that's Ole Miss, it's Texas A&M, it's Missouri. The ceiling for this Oklahoma team, I would say, is probably somewhere around 11-1. The floor for this Oklahoma team, again, the floor is like everything's gone wrong. Not wishing injury on anybody, so we're not saying like, oh, Mateer got hurt. But the floor for this Oklahoma team could be that, I don't know that I go 6-6. Michigan, Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, Texas A&M. Ceiling's 11-1, floors 7-5, 6-6. I mean, I don't think Oklahoma, though, I don't think they're going to ride that roller coaster that they had been for the previous, 3 seasons under Brent Venables. 22, great. 23, not so much. 24, okay. 23, great. 24, not so much. 25, great. 26, we don't know. We just don't know when it comes to Oklahoma. We'll go ahead and take our last time out for the radio side of things here, and we'll go ahead and I'll give my jobs.
This is what happens when you don't sponsor your job on Indeed. Next time, get matched with quality candidates with Indeed sponsored jobs. Visit Indeed.com/hire now and sponsor your job today.
A national championship team covering a national championship team. The best sports talk in the state. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
At Michigan is your first really big test of the season. I think they win. and I wouldn't be shocked if it's off a Tate Sandell field goal. But I do think Oklahoma wins that game. One-score game, slugfest against Kyle Whittingham and the Michigan Wolverines there. New Mexico, same thing. They smoking them. Georgia. This is the first loss Oklahoma will suffer this season. They're going to lose to Georgia. No disrespect to the Sooners. Athens is a miserable place to play, especially at night, especially when Kirby Smart's able to get his team up for that, especially when Kirby Smart's able to get his team up for that game. That's not going to be a fun one. Georgia's going to win that football game, and Georgia's going to be set up for success for the rest of the regular season. Texas, Red River Shootout. I took Texas last season on the air Friday night, had a gut feeling about Oklahoma Crow. I ate Ugly Crow. Our friend from Louisiana called in and made me eat my crow on Monday morning. I don't know if he saw the tweet or if he heard me talk about it on Monday, but I ate crow Monday when I flipped my pick from Texas to Oklahoma in that game. Texas wins that one as well. October 10th, I do think Texas wins that football game. That's just so much to deal with. They were able to mitigate the Brent Venables defense last season. I don't know that Oklahoma's going to make the same mistake of kicking to Ryan Niblett, as our friend from Louisiana loves to remind us about. But I think Texas has just got too much offensive firepower. Arch Manning's putting it together this offseason, allegedly. I think Texas is going to be able to win that one. Again, I think it's a close game. I think it could go either way, but I got to pick one. So I'm going to give that game to Texas there. Kentucky, Mississippi State, South Carolina, Florida. They suffer a scare against Florida, but outside of that, I see them rattling off 4 straight wins there after.
Evening. Buyer's remorse. Buy a new car? I'll be moving in. Let's get started.
Sorry, I think there's been a mistake. I bought it from Carvana.
You what?
Yeah, great price. I even have 7 days to love it or return it.
So there's no...
No buyer's remorse. More like buyer's rejoice.
I guess I'll let myself out. Congratulations. I mean it.
Buyer's rejoice. Buy your car today on Carvana.
Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.